Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to another Walking Dead video. So I want to focus on Daryl, and I want to focus kind of, I guess, a little bit on Rick Grimes, a little bit in terms of them reuniting, because I did talk about this in a video yesterday, but this is sort of unrelated to that because this is more specifically focused on kind of an end game, and I want to talk about a spin-off possibility after the Daryl Dixon show was over and once the Rick and Michonne show was over. And then I also want to get into Rick Grimes' brother Jeffrey, because this is one idea that I've heard a lot of people talk about. I see this question everywhere. People ask me this one question a lot, which is like, could they introduce Jeffrey Grimes on the Daryl Dixon show? Because, you know, Daryl is now in Europe. He is very close to Barcelona, or much closer than he's ever been. And so, you know, it's possible that maybe they actually introduce this character and this is how they actually get into some of that there. So yeah, before going any further, obviously make sure to be a subscriber if you do want to get all my Walking Dead content like this. Comic-Con is in 3 days from now. In 3 days, we're going to get the Rick and Michonne teaser. We're going to get the Daryl Dixon trailer. I will do videos breaking down all of the information then, so definitely hit subscribe if you want to get all my content on that. And thank you so much to those who have joined the Patreon. Honestly, I've been reading a lot of your guys' comments and the messages and stuff, and it's really been kind of overwhelming. A lot of people saying that I've sort of inspired you to keep going with what you're doing or starting this and that. And honestly, like, I wasn't expecting that, but that is something that I really am, like, really appreciating, because it's one of those things where it's like, well, while I'm on this journey, maybe everybody can sort of, you know, be on this journey as well, just everyone together and just like bettering ourselves, you know. So definitely really amazing. Again, episode 2, that vlog should be out this Sunday. I've already filmed some stuff today, or I guess last night. I'll be filming some stuff a lot throughout the week, and then I'll edit everything on Saturday, and then yeah, obviously I'll upload it on Sunday. So to those who have joined the Patreon, again, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. But let's get into this here. So I read this article from Screen Rant. I'll leave a link down below to the actual article. Definitely go and check it out, because they go into a lot of really awesome thoughts here. The article is actually titled "Judith's Secret Reveal Was Walking Dead Finale's Biggest Disappointment." And I will agree with that, definitely. I do think that reveal was pretty disappointing, because just the way she said it, it wasn't like, there wasn't anything exciting about it, and Daryl's reaction was really just a non-reaction. Like, it was just, I was so disappointed when it happened. I was so upset with it. I was just like, come on, like, that was really nothing. It was such a disappointing reveal. But that's not what I want to focus on in the article anyways. What I actually got kind of excited about is when they started to talk about Jeffrey Grimes, and then they go into some stuff later on that I'll also talk about. So Jeffrey Grimes, for those that don't know, because I know a lot of people are going to be like, Jeffrey Grimes, who's this? Jeffrey Grimes in the comic is Rick's younger brother. Now, I know a lot of people say if you introduce the character now, it would make no sense. You know, like, Rick never talked about his brother. In the comic, he never talks about his brother either. I don't even think he has one line about his brother. The only ever mention of Jeffrey Grimes in the comic, I believe, comes from Lori. I think in the 3rd issue, she mentioned something like he had a younger brother named Jeff, or like something like that, or Jeffrey. Like, it was something that was so like, it was so minimal. It was just a random line, and then that was basically it. And they never really addressed it for years, like literally years and years. And eventually, I mean, the comic came out when, 2003, 2005, somewhere around there. I think The Walking Dead, The Alien, came out around, what, 2016, 17, 18? I don't remember exactly when. I'll look it up right now. Yeah, so it came out April 20th, 2016, and then obviously the hardcover in 2020. So, like, this was years later, 10 to 15 years later, that they eventually actually told the story of Jeffrey Grimes, which almost lines up now. If you think about it, the show's been out, or they came out like 13 years ago. So finally tackling the story of Jeffrey Grimes would be something that obviously, you know, it sort of lines up. Like, the comic never addressed it for so long, and people didn't even like know about it because it was a line randomly in issue 3. And people just kind of forgot about it, that it was even a thing. And then all of a sudden you hear Jeffrey Grimes and you're like, wait, what? He had a brother? So on the show, obviously, it would be the same thing. Like, if you found out that Rick had a brother, you'd be like, wait, what? And then you'd find out, well, in the comic he did as well. Like, there is a way to explain it. There is still that aspect to it, though, where it's like, this feels very just out of nowhere, you know? And so it's hard, you know, it's hard because, like, how do you handle this sort of situation? Do you just want to ignore it? I feel like, you know, to have some integrity, to do something that, I don't know, again, it really depends on the casting. Like, that is such a big thing here, because if you cast some like random character, yeah, no one is going to like Jeffrey Grimes that much. It's going to feel very cheap and very just like, okay, you're doing this because you want to have another Grimes character in case Andrew Lincoln doesn't want to be on the show anymore. But that's why I've always brought up the actor Viggo Mortensen, who obviously plays Aragorn in Lord of the Rings. Now, obviously, he probably would never play Jeffrey Grimes. I mean, he would have to play the younger brother, and I think he's much older than Andrew Lincoln. But it's just an example of, if you get an actor like that playing a role like this, people are going to love Jeffrey Grimes immediately. You know what I mean? And people are going to accept the fact that, oh yeah, he is Rick's brother. And maybe they change it on the show and they make him the older brother. I don't know. But it's just something that obviously is very, very like there's a way to do it. There is a way to do it. It's just, you need to do it right. You really need to do this right. And what happens to Jeffrey Grimes actually in the comic is, first of all, he was on a trip, I guess, when the apocalypse started. I don't even know if he was on a trip. I think he might have just like lived in Barcelona, but basically he was in Spain, and he wasn't able to come back obviously once the apocalypse happened. And so he was kind of trapped out there. And then eventually where the story ends is that he just kind of dies. He gets bitten and then he dies. And that's pretty much that. So Jeffrey Grimes is just gone. Never reunites with his brother. Rick never mentioned his brother before Rick's eventual death, which is kind of crazy to think about it now when you just view the whole story. Like, Jeffrey Grimes died in Barcelona, Spain, or I guess when he was trying to leave, and then Rick Grimes died obviously a little later on in Ohio, I guess, you know, during the Commonwealth arc. And it's just it's a really crazy story to get into. But Daryl Dixon is in France. They could introduce this. Do they introduce this idea? I'm going to say no. Again, my biggest issue is it's the casting. You need to get that right. You really need to get that right. Like, for a character like that, you would need to cast somebody who can really hold themselves, just like stage presence wise, just like John Bernthal, just like, you know, Sarah Wayne Callies, just like obviously Andrew Lincoln and Norman Reedus, Melissa McBride. Like, you need someone of that stature to be able to you know, fill a role like that. It can't just be anybody. And so, yeah, I think that's a really tricky thing to do. I don't think they're going to go there. If you're going to ask me my honest opinion, I don't think they're ever going to go there. I think, if anything, before we ever get a Jeffrey Grimes appearance in the Walking Dead universe, I think we're going to get a Lee and Clementine show. Like, which, first of all, you got to do that. Like, you need to have Lee and Clementine. Like honestly, imagine you actually make that show. But the other thing that I wanted to talk about, and this article kind of gets into it at the very end here, which is, you know, the idea of maybe all the spinoffs lead to quote the article here, a giant reunion special. And I actually do wonder if that is the plan, because the thing about the Rick and Michonne show and the Daryl Dixon show and Dead City is it's very hard to have those characters reunite, right? Like, I know everyone says the Rick and Michonne show is only 6 episodes. It's whatever, it is what it is. Maybe that is the case. It doesn't really matter if it's 6 episodes or 18 episodes. And I say 18 in terms of if there's 3 seasons of 6 episodes, because the show is going to be about Rick and Michonne. Maybe you're able to have Morgan on that show, and so you get that reunion. I think that would be really cool. But in order for Rick to reunite with Daryl, or like with Negan or like Maggie, you would need those shows to end as well. You know what I mean? Because those characters are on those shows, especially for Daryl. I focus specifically on Daryl because he's in France. Unless somehow the Daryl show ends up coming over to America again. But like, then again, like, who gets the reunion, right? Like, which show gets the reunion? And that's sort of the tricky part here to figure out. And so that's why I feel like with how they've described the spinoffs, I think that's probably going to be just what it is. I feel like the Rick and Michonne show, maybe we get a 2nd season or at max a 3rd season, but I think that show is really just going to end Rick and Michonne's story. And when they say that, again, it does sound very cryptic. You know, it's going to end Rick and Michonne's story, their character stories or whatever. And so I wonder, like, is it just focused on that relationship? Is it just focused on that part of it? What if it ends with Michonne's death? You know, because we never really got the Rick and Andrea scene from the comic yet. I know that was kind of inspired a little bit, or it did inspire the Negan and Lucille scene, but it's a little different. You know, like, that scene definitely played out a lot differently. And so if you got something with Rick and Michonne in the same way at the end of the Rick and Michonne show, I mean, first of all, crazy heartbreaking scene, probably one of the top deaths of all time. But that's my concern there. You know, like, that's definitely a worry. When they word it like that, I'm like, is this actually going to be the end of one of them? I mean, the reason why I lean more on Michonne being the one that dies is because Rick has technically already kind of died to the characters yes, they're rediscovering that he's alive, but he's technically already kind of died to them, right? So would he just be killed off again, but this time for real? Like, I don't think they're going to go down that road. That's why I think Rick Grimes in the end is going to survive everything now. So that only really leaves Michonne to die. And again, when you just kind of view the different dynamics and aspects to her story, it's pretty inspirational. She left to go and find him. She gave up her life to save him. Like, that's just tragic, amazing, bittersweet. I know they could probably do it right if they were going down that. And that's sort of my concern about the way they describe that show, because like they really describe it as it's the end of their characters' stories. But I'm like, how can it be the end of their stories if they're not going to reunite with Daryl and with everyone else, right? Like the only thing I could really say about that really is I feel like, people describe shows like certain ways, and over time those things change. Like those things do just change here and there. So maybe that's the case here, right? Maybe like obviously the story changes and they want to go in different directions, but I really feel like we have to wait for these shows to end. And the Daryl Dixon show and Dead City, they're probably going to get 4 or 5 seasons each. Like that's kind of my prediction right now, although I said the same thing with The Walking Dead. Like years ago, I said, well, we'll probably get like 4 or 5 seasons. And then all of a sudden they were renewed for a 5th season. They never announced it was the end. So I was like, okay, well, maybe a season 6, maybe 7, maybe it'll end there. And then they just kept kind of going and going and going. But I think for these shows that they probably want to keep it more like 4 or 5 seasons. And then afterwards, I think is where your opportunity is to reunite these characters. Now, there's probably going to be some obviously really cool stuff that happens in between there. We could have Dwight and Sherry go on to Dead City for season 2 or 3. Carol is going to be on the Daryl Dixon show for season 2. You could reintroduce a lot of characters throughout the Walking Dead universe onto these shows and create some really special moments and stuff, right? I just think in the end, you do want to have Rick and Daryl. Like, I just focus on those 2 characters specifically. You need those 2 characters to reunite. You do. And because Daryl's in France and because Rick is, I guess, in Philadelphia right now, and obviously just based off of the shows and how different they are, it's just one of those things where there kind of needs to be a brand new spinoff announced afterwards, where it's sort of a reunion spinoff, right? Like a 10-episode limited series. Everyone's back together to defeat the Civic Republic or whoever, right? Because if they don't, it's going to be like, again, I look at this kind of I'll try to look at it from a business perspective, because I think that's what, ultimately I feel like will really, it's not even just a business perspective, but, like that plays a big role into it. But it's in terms of like the legacy of these characters in the show and just the future of the Walking Dead franchise, because the Walking Dead franchise is never going to end. Like, there's going to be shows in 30 years from now, 40 years from now. They're going to keep this going because Walking Dead as a brand name for zombies and like the horror genre is such a big popular name. It's never going away. Like, Walking Dead really tapped into something with the zombie genre that I don't think can really be replicated again. There's just nothing that anyone else can really do besides telling the same thing, and maybe they'll be very successful, but there's always got to be a spin on it, and The Walking Dead as a name is such a good name. Like, that is such a good name for a zombie story. So this franchise is going to live on forever, and that's why with the story here, with, how successful the show got, like in 2014-15, the show got so massive in those years there that you really, really need to end this right. And that reunion is so important because in the future, people are going to look back at that era there where it was like that 10 to 20 year era of like this amazing apocalyptic story with Andrew Lincoln, Norman Reedus, and etc. Because they're going to reboot this one day. Like, it's going to happen in 2040. Like The Walking Dead will be rebooted easily. It'll be all recast. Everyone will be so excited for it too, because you'll just be able to do it. Maybe us, will be much older and we'll be like, no, you can't do that. That show was the best. Like you're never going to be able to change that or make it better. But then, a new generation might prefer it, right? So like, my point is, overall, I feel like the reunion and how you end this is so important for the future of the franchise, because if you don't stick the landing here, like, it could just be really bad going forward where people don't really have a lot of faith in it. And I think the spinoffs that we've had so far, I'm not including Dead City, but I'm including like Fear the Walking Dead, Tales of the Walking Dead, The Walking Dead World Beyond. I think those spinoffs don't really help The Walking Dead's name. Like, those shows haven't really been that good. Yes, Fear has had some good seasons, But like, and also Tales of the Walking Dead had like 1 or 2 good episodes. Besides that, though, those shows have not been good, and it does not help the legacy of The Walking Dead. And Dead City actually does. Dead City is actually changing that. And so you can kind of see it right now. I feel like AMC does realize that. And I think that's why there is such a focus on the quality of all of that. And I think that's why the budget for these shows is so much more massive now. And they're really taking this seriously. I'm not saying that like, they never took it seriously, but I really feel like they're focusing on the quality of it more so than they ever did. Because I mean, look at Fear the Walking Dead and World Beyond, right? So anyways, I'm excited here. I'm really excited for what they have planned, because obviously right now the universe is more exciting than ever. Dead City is such a massive hit. Daryl Dixon looks so good. And Rick and Michonne, we'll have to wait and see. We're going to get that teaser, obviously, on Friday. I can't wait to see what the look is overall going to be. That's what I'm mostly looking forward to, you know, just the overall vibe to the show, because that's going to tell us so much. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see. So definitely post all your thoughts down below. Do you think there should be a giant reunion sort of, I guess, show at the very end of all of this? And also, what are your thoughts on Jeffrey Grimes? Do you think the Daryl show could introduce him? Post all your thoughts down below. Hope you all enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.